My name is Ryan Johnston, and I'm the Director of Operations for Camunda in North America. Today we're going to be talking about Zeebe, the successor to TNGP, which we introduced here last year, and how it can be used in a real-world use case. Our existing flagship product is Camunda BPM. It's about 5 years old and has led us to tremendous growth. Today we have over 190 customers actually around the world, and we're growing at almost a 100% rate year over year. Here's a sampling of some of our current Camunda BPM customers. Included in this list are blue chip organizations such as AXA, Allianz, Total, Generali, and several others, as you can see on the screen. Camunda BPM is one of the fastest, most high-performance BPM engines on the market today, as evidenced by this third-party study put together by a group of researchers at universities in Germany and Switzerland. But the reality is that traditional BPM doesn't work for everyone. What about organizations that need to handle business transactions at a massive scale, several times what we typically handle within BPM? Organizations such as eBay, UPS, and NASDAQ. Because of a lack of suitable products and their need for massive scale, they haven't been able to benefit from BPM, which of course I don't have to sell to this audience. It's unique in its ability to distribute work, handle events, and provide for business visibility. Enter big workflow. We can learn from existing products and existing approaches in the industry and combine them with BPM characteristics to build better BPM products, which is what we've done with Zeebe. So what happened to TNGP? The next generation process engine has grown, matured, and evolved, and we now call it Zeebe. It's available at zeebe.io, and we invite all of you to check it out. What about the performance of Zeebe versus Camunda BPM? As represented in numbers of process instances started per second, with Camunda BPM in blue down at the bottom and Zeebe in red, you can see that Zeebe significantly outperforms Camunda BPM. And here's a comparison of Zeebe versus Kafka. The performance profile is very similar, and that's no surprise as we've taken significant inspiration from Kafka in the creation of Zeebe. But we're not here today to talk about Zeebe in a lab. We're here to talk about Zeebe in a real-world use case. That's why we paired it with Optimize, which provides visibility in a business activity monitoring style for workflows. With Optimize, you can create heat maps, which allow you to see at a glance how your process instances are executing. But you can also build charts and tables, which allow you to represent your business data in any way that you require. Once you've built those reports, you can arrange them on one-to-N custom dashboards, resizing them larger or smaller as necessary, given their desired prominence or importance on your dashboards. We also provide what we call branch analysis, which allows you to see where instances that have reached certain gateways ultimately end up, with statistics as shown. Zeebe works extremely well with Optimize. Zeebe actually delivers events virtually immediately to Optimize. This means that you can report on what has transpired in Zeebe in Optimize in near real time. We can talk about this forever, but today we're going to show a real-world use case using this process model. Don't worry, I'll go into this process model in more detail when we have more time. Our example is a pairs trading use case, a statistical arbitrage strategy that allows brokerage houses and hedge funds to profit from short-term divergences in historically correlated equities such as these. As with any statistical arbitrage strategy, timing is everything. We absolutely do not need to be right all the time. However, we need to be able to place enough bets such that we can be profitable while being right over half the time. Enter Zeebe and its ability to handle massive scale. What about Zeebe versus Camunda BPM in terms of performance in this real-world use case? As it does in a lab, you can see that Zeebe significantly outperforms Camunda BPM, already one of the fastest engines on the market today. Without further ado, let's see it. So this being a BPM conference, I think we should start by walking through the process model, right? So let's do that. Let's give you an understanding of what we're going to be showing you as we execute this. And let's make this a little bit larger so we can see it. This demo actually assumes the presence of a third-party system, which is noticing that there are statistical arbitrage opportunities, pairs trade opportunities that exist in the market. And when each one of those opportunities is noticed, it's going to kick off an instance of this process model. When we receive one of those arbitrage opportunity signals, the first thing that we're going to do is calculate the risk and profit potential using a decision table. If we determine that that risk-profit profile is significant, we move on to the next step, which is calculating the total risk exposure. This is happening via an integration to a node-based web service that is running on this machine. If that web service tells us that we have an acceptable level of total risk, our next step is to auto-calculate our short and long positions. A couple things here. We're using Kotlin to illustrate that we can use many different mechanisms for executing code with Zeebe, as you would expect. And we're also actually auto-calculating those positions. And remember, we're talking about looking for divergences in equities that move together. So for a short period of time, it could be seconds, it could be minutes, they're going to diverge. There's going to be a long buying opportunity on the low side and a short opportunity on the high side. That's what we're calculating right here. The next two steps after that are both web services integrations to Node web services that I have running on this machine. The first one is to enter trade information in TradeQX, which is sort of an ERP system that I've contrived for this example, just to store the trades that occur in the system. And then we're going to execute the trade via, again, a web service integration. Now, before I go off of this process model and actually execute the instances, let's talk about a couple things. Number one, non-happy path. Obviously, if we've determined that the risk-profit profile is limited, we will sit out the arbitrage opportunity and will not take a short or long position. Additionally, if the total risk exposure is too high, meaning we have a total set of positions across our portfolio that makes this too risky, then we will also sit out this arbitrage opportunity. Now, a full detailed discussion of the technical characteristics of Zeebe is beyond the scope of this particular demonstration, although I can certainly answer questions about it during the Q&A session. But I do want to talk about a couple of things. First of all, here, the type of task indicates the key that we're going to have to specify when we create a task subscription. And a task subscriber is a doer in the system. We'll get a task, and we'll get a lock for a period of time. If we complete the task, fantastic. If we aren't able to complete the task, perhaps we go down. The lock expires. Obviously, the task is delivered to another task subscriber. This is as opposed to a topic subscriber, where a topic subscriber is more of a viewer. The topic subscriber would, for example, get maybe workflow instance events started and finished, and perhaps log those events to a log file or write them to a NoSQL data store of some sort. Okay? So two different subscriptions that you would use with Zeebe. Now, let's go over and actually run some instances of this. And I could have done this in a bunch of different ways. I could have shown off my impressive UI building capabilities, as Edson said yesterday. I don't think you guys want to see those. Either way, I've chosen to use the terminal to actually kick off these instances. I'll go ahead and start them. And I'll go over here to my set of task subscribers. And you can see a whole bunch of stuff scroll by really quickly. Obviously, you would expect it to execute 20 instances very fast based on our claims of performance that we've shared both this year and last year. Now, let me go over to Firefox and show you this tool, the Zeebe Simple Monitor. we're going to be building tools with Zeebe over time that are going to replicate the capabilities of Cockpit and Task List. Not 100%, but very close. We don't have those tools built yet because this is still an early stage product. What we have right now is this tool, Zeebe Simple Monitor, which provides a subset of those capabilities. So I'll show you some of those capabilities as we walk through this today. First of all, when I create a connection to a broker in Zeebe Simple Monitor, and with any Zeebe client, I'm creating a connection using an initial contact point. This means that this is not the only connection I create. I actually create connections to all of the brokers that are in the cluster. And it does this behind the scenes. It does it invisibly. You don't have to worry about it. So we follow the approach that Kafka has introduced into the industry in this case. Once we have created the connections to that cluster of brokers, we can go into the Workflow Definitions tab, and we can see our workflow definitions in the system. This is the exact same workflow definition that I just showed you. I would not try to pull a bait and switch on you, so it is the same. All right? Now, we can also go into the Workflow Instances tab, and we can see all of our instances that we have in the system. This particular instance has gone all the way through, meaning that we decided to participate in this arbitrage opportunity and to try to profit from it. You see that it's gone all the way through along the happy path. If I click on this one, you're going to see that this one has decided to go down the first branch in the alternate path. So we're sitting out this arbitrage opportunity because our risk-profit profile is limited. One other thing that I'd like to show on this screen before I move on to the next screen is that our payload is in JSON format. And of course, this means that it's very easy to interact with Zeebe when you're kicking off a workflow instance or when you're completing a specific task. Now, in Zeebe, we store this JSON using something called message pack to decrease the size of the JSON and thus help to speed up Zeebe even more. But that's invisible to you when you're using the clients, and you don't have to worry about that. Now let me click on logs. This is important because this is actually a good representation of a topic subscription. This is a set of events that we are listening for, that we are subscribing to, and we're seeing those events come through. You'll see workflow instance completed. You actually see 4 of those at the beginning, and you'll see a whole bunch of different events as we scroll down. You might see activity completed, several different types of events down in this list. Okay? Now, let's go over to Optimize. And of course, it's logged me out. Standard operating procedure for a demonstration. In Optimize, when you log in a production scenario, you're undoubtedly going to have a list of dashboards that have different representations of the data based on what you're trying to do. In this particular case, I have a single dashboard because it's a demonstration, and I'm going to use that dashboard to show you some of the reports that we've built in Optimize. And again, these reports are connected directly to Zeebe, right? So the information, more precisely, the information is being pulled from Zeebe. We're storing it in something called Elasticsearch. You guys are probably familiar with that tool. And then reporting on that information using these reports. In the upper left, you see a pie chart that shows the flow node distribution. And what you can see within this particular pie chart at a glance is that we have a significantly larger number of arbitrage opportunity signal received events or flow nodes that have been activated as compared to sit-out arbitrage opportunity. And if you were to look at the numbers, sit-out arbitrage opportunity is in red, and the first start event is in blue. And if you were to look at the numbers, you would see this about 35%. In other words, with this data set, we're sitting out about 35% of these opportunities, and we're participating in 65%. If we go over here to the heat map, we can see similar information, but you just see it in a different representation. Here we have orange and red in the first two steps, indicating that they have relatively higher heat, and as you would expect, as we go past our first exclusive gateway, it goes down a little bit because obviously we have some instances that have followed to sit out arbitrage opportunity, have followed that first alternate sequence flow. Scrolling down, clearly this report right here is the sexiest report that I have on this screen with a single number that shows up. I'm actually showing this for a specific reason because we have alerting. And with alerting, we need to be able to get very simple data so that we can do comparisons. So you'll see that here in just a second. This report, pairs trade flow nodes counts, is actually a tabular representation of the same information that we had in this pie chart. And I'll show you that in just a second when we edit the pie chart report. And then this one right here is just a display of the raw data within the system. And again, the idea behind these reports is to allow you to visually, very quickly, see what's happening within your system. I'll flip over to reports. I'm not going to go through all of this information. You've already seen these reports. But I am going to pick one, and I'm going to edit it and point out how you would actually create reports within the system. If I drop this down on the left, it'll show me a list of the process definitions that I have in the system. And if you're anything like me, as you spend more and more time with BPM, you start to think of your process models as images and not necessarily as names. So having the image right here is extremely helpful when you're picking a process model to use for your report. And I can also pick different versions. I can pick a view. These are pretty self-explanatory. I can pick a group by mechanism based on the view that I've chosen. And I can visualize my data in one of a bunch of different ways. If I were to just click on table, you'd see that this is similar to the report that you saw. It's actually exactly the same to the report that you saw on the dashboard. Right? Same information, different visualization within the system. I'm not going to show you branch analysis because you saw that in the presentation. In the name of efficiency, I'm just going to cruise on over here to alerts. In the Q&A, if you want to see that, I'd be happy to show it to you. Now, alerts are a way to have the system actively notify you when something goes on. None of us has time to go into a monitoring system of any sort and look at it many, many times a day. We might do it once or twice. For the most part, we're interested in being notified when something happens. And that's what the alert functionality provides you. In this case, it's a very simple alert, sending an email to me based on this process instances count. If it's above 100, it's going to send me an email. And I can create as many of those alerts as is necessary given my business requirements. So that's it for the demo for the Zeebe and optimized functionality. What I'd like to do before we turn it over to you for Q&A, though, is show you kind of a fun thing that we've built with Camunda BPM. And this is sort of a tradition. You guys that were here last year saw us show something fun. We want to do the same thing. And our idea here is that, yes, Cockpit is a very good functional tool, but why can't we make it interesting as well? And so we've added some video game style functionality into Cockpit. And you're probably thinking, what is he talking about at this point? So let me go into this process instance, which I've launched beforehand, and I'll go into a specific instance. Here you can see that we have 5 current activity instances of complete simple task. If I drag and drop this little walking guy down here in the bottom right, or maybe it's a running man, not sure. If I drag and drop that on here, now I can see some bouncing purple or blue balls on the screen. All right? I can also see that I'm in my process model. So if I move around, that is going to open so that I can actually walk around. And sometimes it's just a little funky in terms of moving around here. So I'm going into a gateway, and I can see some of the paths out of the gateway. Now, if I can get myself back, hold on. Bear with me for just a second here. I have managed to lose myself. I'll find myself, I promise. Okay, so we're back here in the complete simple task. What is most interesting about this is I can pull out my gun. And let's see how good a shot I am. All right, hold on. I'm going to try one that's farther away. There we go. I got that one. They seem to be moving faster. There we go. I got a second one. All right. So let me go back to this particular process instance. And you'll see that we have 3 activity instances remaining versus 5. So why not have a little fun when you're managing your process instances? So thank you. I'll turn it over to you for any questions you might have. Questions?
Who made more money, Bruce or you?
I don't know. We'll have to compare notes later.
I have a question.
Okay.
Is Optimized specific to Zeebe, or does it work with the regular product as well?
It works with Camunda BPM. We've actually adapted it to Zeebe. And it still has some things that don't work quite the same as they do with Camunda BPM. But yeah, it's adapted to Zeebe. Other questions? Max?
Do you have a guidance or flowchart or something that will kind of let me know when I should be looking at Zeebe and when I should be looking at traditional?
When you should be, what, I'm sorry?
When I should be looking at Zeebe and when I should be looking at like more traditional.
So Zeebe is currently intended for those businesses that need to process those transactions at massive scale. You heard me say that at the beginning of the presentation. Right now, if you don't have a need for massive scale, we would direct you to Camunda BPM. If you have a need for massive scale, Zeebe might be appropriate. But keep in mind, Zeebe is currently in its early stages of development.
And then migration after that? Like if I have a customer that starts out on the BPM and we find that they're going to grow and scale, should I tell them to start out on Zeebe? Because that's where they're going to be?
Not right now. We'll work with you, though, with those customers and see what their specific requirements are and see if we should start to explore this as a possibility for the future. We're partners, so we should be able to do that, right?
Conventional processes that are just at massive scale.
I think it would work really well in that use case. We haven't tried it in that type of use case yet, but it should work extremely well if we're trying to do something like that. Be interesting to find out. Neil, did you have a question?
Max just asked it.
Okay, fantastic. Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. We are going to meet back here at 1:30, and lunch is officially from 12 to 1:30. But